In the Muffin Read series, I intend to take you on a journeys into myths, legends and other fascinating stories from the past in a bite-sized, easy-to-digest and uncomplicated way. Some of these stories you may recognise from the telly or movies, but don't worry, we won't need tens of hours to tell them, and the only special effects needed are those of your own imagination. The first Muffin Reads I've selected, and feel free to suggest future reads, is the Saga of the Volsungs. This is an influential tale, actually a series of connected tales that has fed into the works of Wagner, Tolkien and many more. If you've jumped into this episode first, then please wind back and pick up parts 1 to 3, links in the description. Then jump back to continue this fascinating tale. In the last episode, we learned of how Sigurd came to win a large hoard of treasure, and after that feat, he travelled a great distance, eventually heading towards Flachland, modern-day France. On the way, he saw a bright light, similar to a great fire shining from a mountain. On investigating this, he discovered a rampart of shields, atop which lay a sleeping figure, and over which flew a banner. The figure was armoured, the mail of which was so tight that it seemed to be part of the figure's skin. When Sigurd removed the figure's helm, he saw that it was a woman, held in some deep enchanted sleep. He took up Gram and sliced open the woman's armour, as if it were mere cloth, and as the armour fell away, the woman was roused from her slumber. "Who has awoken me?" she exclaimed. "Is that Sigurd, son of Sigmund, bearer of the sword that was Fafnir's bane, who has the helm of Fafnir?" "Yes," replied Sigurd. "I am a descendant of the Volsungs. I have heard of you too. I am told that you are the daughter of a king, and of much beauty and wisdom. I would test this." Brynhild, for that was the woman's name, told Sigurd the tale of two kings, Gunnar and Agnar. Odin had promised victory to Gunnar, but I killed him in the battle. Odin cursed me, saying that I would never win another battle, and I must marry. I countered that I would only marry one who has no fear. He stabbed me with a sleeping thorn, and there I have lain until you woke me. Brynhild and Sigurd sat and drank together, he testing her wisdom, and he learning many things from her, of the runes of victory, of waves and speech and ale and aid and healing, and of their use and their carving. She counselled him on patience, on dealing with those who would speak rashly through drink, on the dangerous allure of beautiful women, and sleeping safely when travelling on the roads haunted by monsters. She advised him that it was better to fight enemies than to wait for them to burn him in his house. She told him of the proper respect for the dead, no matter how they died, and not to trust the kinsman of a man that he had killed. So impressed was Sigurd by the wisdom of her words that he vowed to marry her, and Brynhild, seeing the man before her was indeed without fear, returned that vow in kind. The hero Sigurd carried a shield that was plated with red gold, and carried the blazon of a dragon after the slaying of Fafnir, so everyone knew that it was he who had performed this heroic deed. Its top half was dark brown, and the bottom light red. This crest he also carried on his helm, his saddle, his overcoat, his armour with mail of gold, and his weaponry was ornamented with gold. His hair was long and brown, and he sported a short, thick beard of the same colour. His broad, chiselled face sported a high nose and piercing eyes, such that few could hold his gaze. So broad were his shoulders that some thought that they were looking upon two men. When he carried his sword Gram at his belt, itself 5 feet long, and walked through a field of rye, such was Sigurd's height that the tip of the sword's sheath would graze the tip of the crop. He was a master of sword, of spear, of javelin, and shield and bow, and excelled at horsemanship. Aside his physical qualities, he had also wisdom, could, since tasting Fafnir's heartblood, understand the language of birds, and knew other languages of men too. Sigurd possessed foresight, and he could see some events before they happened. His charisma captivated all who heard him speak, and after hearing him, men could not help but agree the action he proposed was true. Sigurd was generous with his gifts, in battle and in all other things. He supported his men and often tested himself to serve as an example to them. Booty that he took from his enemies he shared with them equally. His courage inspired them, and he never knew fear. After riding from Brynhild, Sigurd came to the lands of Heimir. This chieftain was married to Berkhilda, sister to Brynhild. She was named Bench Warrior, as she took up needlework and those skills traditional to women, while her sister was named for the armour that she wore into battle. Heimir and Brynhild had a son, Alsvid, who was a pleasant man. When Sigurd arrived, the men of Heimir's court stopped and marvelled at him and the treasure that he carried. They heard his tale of the battle against Fafnir, and he was welcomed in the court as a hero. Sigurd stayed with Heimir for a while, and was greatly honoured during that time. From the court, news of Sigurd's heroic deeds spread out across the lands. Brynhild arrived at Heimir's court in time after Sigurd, and secretly from him. There she crafted a tapestry of woven gold, depicting Sigurd's battle against Fafnir and the treachery of Regin. Then, when Sigurd returned from hunting, he saw one of his hawks fly to a window in Heimir's castle. Looking to the window, he spied a most beautiful woman, and recognised that it was Brynhild. When the men entered the hall to sport, Sigurd did not join in. Alsvid asked him, "What's wrong? Why do you not join us?" Sigurd replied, "When we returned, I saw the most beautiful woman, and she was weaving a tapestry showing my past deeds." "Ah, you have seen Brynhild, daughter of Budli. Put her out of your mind. She is unobtainable. She has allowed no man to sit with her, nor has she served ale to any since she arrived a few days ago," Alsvid said. "I will go to her, and I will offer her gold and my love," Sigurd replied. "She does not want love," responded Alsvid, "for she is a warrior woman, a shield maiden. All she yearns for is battle." Sigurd went to Brynhild all the same, ignoring his friend's advice. Alsvid followed, and intrigued remained outside the room, making arrow shafts, to hear what transpired. Sigurd greeted Brynhild, who returned the greeting to him. Then he sat next to her. "That seat is granted to few but my father," Brynhild said. "Now it is granted to those who please me," replied Sigurd. "All has happened as you promised me," he told her. She replied, "You are welcome here." Brynhild stood and brought a gold cup to Sigurd and offered it to him. Instead of taking the cup, Sigurd caught her arm and drew her down beside him. There he kissed her and said, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." "Do not put your trust in beautiful women," she warned him, "for they always break their promises." "Our wedding day shall be the best day," he said. She replied, "I am a shield maiden. It is not fated for us to be married, for I must ride with my warriors and support them in battle." "If we do not marry," Sigurd responded, "then I will know grief more painful than the worst battle wound." "You are not fated to marry me," Brynhild foretold, "for it is Gudrun, daughter of Giuki, who will be your bride." "No king's daughter shall seduce me," Sigurd cried. "I have made up my mind. I cast an oath before the gods that I will marry no other but you." "And I shall marry no one but you either," vowed Brynhild. Their oath renewed, Sigurd gave Brynhild a gold ring to seal their bond. After that, Sigurd went to stay with his men for a time. In those days, there was a king named Giuki, who held lands south of the Rhine. He had 3 sons, Gunnar, Hogni, and Guttorm, and a daughter, Gudrun. His wife was Grimhild, who was a sorceress. One day, Gudrun confessed her unhappiness to her handmaid. When they asked her what was wrong, she told them of a dream that had vexed her. "I dreamed of a hawk that came to my hand. It was the most handsome hawk, and its feathers were of gold." Her maid replied, "That means a king's son will ask for your hand in marriage." "The hawk captivated me," Gudrun continued, "so that it was all I could think of. I would have given up all of my wealth in favour of staying with it." The maid translated, "Your princeling will be well bred, and you will fall deeply in love with him." "All you say might be true," Gudrun said, "but it vexes me that I do not know who it is. I know of a wise shield maiden, the daughter of our neighbouring king, Budli. She is named Brynhild, and it is said that she knows dreams and can tell the future. We shall visit her. Perhaps she may help." And so Gudrun and her retinue set out to visit Brynhild. Of course, Brynhild saw her coming and prepared for her arrival. When Gudrun and her followers had been seated at Brynhild's table, Brynhild turned to Gudrun and asked, "Do not be sad. Why don't we cheer you up by talking of great kings and their deeds?" Gudrun agreed and asked, "Who do you consider to have been the best kings?" Brynhild replied, "Haki and Hagbard, the sons of Hamund. They were great warriors, famed in battle." "True, they were very great. But Saga took one of their sisters and burned another alive in her own home. And they have not yet taken revenge for this. What about my brothers? Are they not great?" asked Gudrun. "They are indeed," replied Brynhild, "but they are yet young and untested. There is another greater, who is Sigurd, son of Sigmund. He was still a boy when he had his revenge on the sons of King Hunding." "How is that so?" retorted Gudrun. "Was he not born before his father was killed?" So Brynhild recounted the tale of Sigmund, and Hunding, and Ainmi, and King Alf, and all the rest that we have heard about in Sigurd's deeds. "You sound like you love this prince," Gudrun replied when she had finished. "But I haven't come here to talk of such things. I must ask you to interpret my dreams, for you are wise in such things, and they are the root of my unhappiness." So Gudrun told Brynhild of another dream. "I saw a fine stag, greater than any other deer. Its hair was gold. I hunted the stag, but I could not catch it alone. And then you, Brynhild, shot the stag in front of me, and such sorrow did I feel. You then gave me a wolf's cub, which smeared me with my brother's blood." "I will interpret your dream," said Brynhild, "in precisely what will happen. You will come to Sigurd, to whom I am betrothed. Your mother will give him an enchanted cup of mead. This will bring all of us to grief. You will marry Sigurd, but then you will lose him shortly afterwards, and after that you will marry King Atli. You will lose brothers, and then you will kill your husband." Gudrun left the halls of Brynhild, perhaps even more vexed than when she had arrived there. Well, it came to a time when Sigurd rode to the court of King Giuki. That king did not know him. "Who are you? Who comes here without permission of my sons?" demanded Giuki. "I am Sigurd, son of King Sigmund," Sigurd replied. And King Giuki then knew him for his reputation and his stories. He welcomed him and offered him hospitality. Grimhilda saw Sigurd's heroic stature, and his wealth, and his power, and his influence, and she came to thinking that should Sigurd marry her daughter Gudrun, then the marriage would bring much to her family. But she also perceived his love for Brynhild in the number of times that he brought her up in the conversation, and the words he spoke about her. So she concocted a plan. One evening in the drinking hall, Grimhild came to Sigurd. "We are most happy to be host to such a fine hero as yourself," she said, "and I offer this horn to you that we might all drink together in your honour." Sigurd gratefully took the horn and drank down the mead it held, after which Brynhild continued, "King Juki will be your father, and I will be your mother. Gunnar and Hogni will be your brothers, then none shall be your equal." Sigurd heard these words, and as the magic of Grimhild's mead took hold of his brain, all memory of Brynhild left him. Then Grimhild went to Giuki and said, "You know, we've got the greatest hero in the world among us. He would bring much to our family. Why not offer your daughter's hand?" Giuki agreed, and so one evening in the drinking hall, when Gudrun was serving, King Giuki said to Sigurd, "It's been good having you here. You've done a lot of good for my kingdom." Gunnar added, "We would like you to stay here longer. We would give you a position and the hand of my sister, Gudrun. We wouldn't offer these to anyone else." Sigurd replied, saying, "You honour me with this. Of course, I accept." A great feast was arranged, and Sigurd swore brotherhood with the sons of Giuki and married Gudrun. The celebrations lasted many days, and each day the revellers tried to outdo the festivities of the day before. After that, Sigurd and Giuki's sons travelled widely, performing many heroic deeds, eventually returning home with a vast amount of treasure. And Sigurd gave a portion of Fafnir's heart to Gudrun to eat, which increased her knowledge and wisdom. Eventually she bore him a son, and he was named Sigmund. Grimhild went to her son Gunnar and said to him, "You have gained a lot since Sigurd has joined us, but you are still unmarried. Go with Sigurd to the kingdom of Budli and ask for his daughter Brynhild's hand in marriage." "I have heard of her beauty," replied Gunnar. "So yes, I will do this." Gunnar and Sigurd set out to King Budli's court, seeking the hand of Brynhild for Gunnar. When they arrived, Budli let them know that he wasn't opposed to the match, but the choice should ultimately be Brynhild's. He also told them that Brynhild was living in King Hymir's lands. So they continued on to King Hymir, who said much the same as Budli. "She has a strong will," he said, "so she will not marry anyone that she does not want to. She has surrounded her hall with flame, and won't marry anyone that cannot brave the flames to visit her." So on they went until they found Brynhild's hall, surrounded by flame as Hymir had told them. Gunnar drove his horse on towards the flames, but it refused to leap over them. "What's up? Why do you retreat?" asked Sigurd. "My horse doesn't like the fire," replied Gunnar. "Lend Grani to me. He will get through." So Sigurd gave Gunnar the reins of his horse, and Gunnar tried again, but even Grani balked and would not go through. "Let me have a go," said Sigurd. Before leaving on the journey, Grimhild had taught Sigurd and Gunnar the secrets of changing form, and this they did now, Sigurd taking on Gunnar's appearance and vice versa. After doing so, Sigurd mounted Grani, and with his sword Gram held high, he rode at the flames. As he approached the flames, they drew higher and became fiercer, but on he went, and finally he burst through with a great leap from Grani to the other side. When Sigurd landed, the flames subsided, and he dismounted in front of the hall. Entering, he found Brynhild sitting within. "Who are you?" she asked. Sigurd replied, "I am Gunnar, son of Giuki, and I have the consent of your father to claim you as my wife. Should I defeat the fire around your hall, which I have done, and you also consent this to be so." "Have a care, Gunnar," Brynhild then said, as she stood in the finery of her armour, holding the hilt of her sword. "For unless you have surpassed the feats of all other men, and killed all of those who would also seek my hand, your bravery may not be enough. I am a warrior, and I still desire to be a warrior, wife or not. I have fought for and against kings, not the least the king of Gedariki." Sigurd replied to this, reminding Brynhild of her vows. "You have achieved many things, and have gained much renown, but remember, you have said that you would go with the man who braved the fire." They stayed together in Brynhild's hall for 3 nights. Yet Sigurd kept them apart by laying his unsheathed gram between them. When Brynhild asked him about this, he told her that their fate decreed it must be so, or he would die. In truth, he was staying faithful to his friend Gunnar. After those nights, Sigurd took the ring Andvananot, which he himself had given to Brynhild, and gave her another ring from Fafnir's hoard instead. Then he rode back through the flames to Gunnar, where they took back their own shapes and returned to Hrimdale. That same day, Brynhild left her hall and rode to her foster father, Heimir. She told him that a hero had come to her, braving the flames about her hall. "He named himself Gunnar," she recounted, "but when I made my vow, only Sigurd, my first love, was brave enough to face the fire." Heimir said to her, "But an oath you did make, and the terms of the oath have come to pass. If Gunnar it is that has braved the flames, then Gunnar it is you must marry." Brynhild then asked Heimir to care for her daughter by Sigurd, Aslaug, and raise her well, while she journeyed to her father, King Budli. Grimhilda received the news of the achievement of Gunnar as he and Sigurd returned, and rewarded Sigurd for supporting her son. A great feast was organised, and King Budli arrived with Brynhild and his son, Atli. During the feasting, which lasted for many days, Gunnar sat with Brynhild, and at the height of it all, they married. And when it was done, Sigurd's memories returned. He remembered the vows he had made to Brynhilda, but told this to no one. A few days after the feasting, Gudrun and Brynhilda went bathing in the Rhine. Brynhilda waded further out into the waters of the river, at which point Gudrun asked, "Why are you doing that?" Brynhilda turned to Gudrun and replied, "Should I be your equal in bathing as well as everything else? My father is more powerful than yours, and my husband has performed a great many deeds, including braving the fires of my oath to win me. Your husband, on the other hand, was a thrall of King Hjalprek." "It is not wise to insult the deeds of my husband," Gudrun retorted, "for everyone knows how great a hero he is. He was your first man, and he killed Fafnir." And then, unable to hold her tongue, she continued, "And it was he that braved the flames when you thought it was Gunnar. He lay with you with his sword, and he took the ring Andavaranot from your hand. I have it, see?" At which point she showed him her hand, and Brynhild recognised the ring that Sigurd had given to her all of that time ago. Brynhild went back to the halls and spoke to no one. Seeing how she was, Sigurd went to Gudrun and asked her why Brynhilda was being so moody. "I don't know," she said. "She has wealth and happiness, and everyone likes her. She married the man that she wanted. She has nothing to be moody about." Sigurd then asked Gudrun, "Did she say she married the man that she wanted? Where was she when she said that?" "I don't know," replied Gudrun, "but I'll ask her in the morning if she did." Sigurd frowned and said, "Don't do that, for I think you may regret the outcome." But in the morning, Gudrun sat with Brynhilda in the shade of a copse near the hall. "You should be happy," Gudrun said. "You have everything that you need. Why be sad? Did our conversation yesterday really upset you that much?" Brynhild looked at her and replied, "You have so much malice in your heart, and that has brought us to this point." Gudrun, a bit taken aback, said, "Don't think of me like that. Tell me, what would make you happy?" "Do not ask questions of me that you do not want to hear the answers to," responded Brynhilda. "It is easy to find happiness when everything turns out as you want it to be." To which Gudrun replied, "Why be so angry towards me? I haven't done anything to you." Brynhilda caught her rival in a fierce glare. "You married Sigurd against my oath, and I cannot stand to see you together with him and his riches." Gudrun haughtily threw back, "I didn't know anything about your oath, Besides which, my father wished for me to marry Sigurd, and it is within his rights to arrange that marriage for me without consulting you." "Our oaths were not secret," Brynhild shot back. "And still you married him, knowing that you were betraying me. This I will avenge," Gudrun replied. "You married a king, better than you deserve. If you cannot let go of the past, you will end up hurting more than just me." "I would have been content with Sigurd," Brynhild confirmed. "You have a great and noble husband in Gunnar. He has a greater kingdom than Sigurd had ever has." "He fought and slew Fafnir," replied Brynhild, "and that single deed surpasses everything Gunnar has." "Do not doubt the courage of Gunnar," Gudrun retorted. "For even though he did not go through the flames, he still mounted Grani and tried to urge the horse through. That shows his bravery." "Yes, I know they exchanged shape and deceived my oath. And do not think that I don't know Grimhild's part in all of this," said Brynhild. "My mother treats you as her own daughter. Do not accuse her of wrongdoing," Gudrun shot back. "I know she gave Sigurd the Ale of Forgetfulness. I know she aided Gunnar and Sigurd to exchange shape. I know her part in all of this." Brynhild glared coldly at her stepsister. "Do not speak such lies," Gudrun growled, but Brynhilda cut her off. "Enjoy your marriage while you may, as things will go the way I have foreseen. Remember that." Gudrun stared at her in defiance. "I shall enjoy my marriage more than you can imagine, and fare far better than you have seen." And so, great anger grew between Brynhild and Gudrun. After this, Brynhild went to her rooms and asked to see no one, as she wasn't feeling well. Gunnar, hearing this, went to her and asked what was wrong. She played dead for a while, hoping he would leave, but he persisted, and so eventually Brynhild told her husband of her woes. "With Grimhild, you have cheated me of my oath. When the sons of King Giuki came to King Budli, they demanded I choose a husband or they would burn the land. I told my father that I would fight with our army to defend our land, but he said that I should betroth myself instead. And so I betrothed myself to he who could brave the fire of my oath, who rode Grani and possessed Fafnir's treasure. With your mother's witchcraft, you made Sigurd do all of these things in your guise, because you could not. Then you claimed me for your wife. You have made me an oath breaker, and I will bring my revenge upon you and Grimhild for that." "You do not speak the truth," Gunnar replied, yet knowing that she did. "You should not speak ill of a woman who is more noble than you. Grimhild deserves your respect and praise, not your ill tidings." Brynhild looked as though to try and kill Gunnar at that point, but Hogni restrained her and put her in fetters. "I do not want my wife to live in chains," said Gunnar, so Hogni released her. Brynhild then made a promise to Gunnar. "From this day, I will not be cheerful in your hall. I will not drink there, nor will I play games. I will not entertain your guests or you, nor engage in embroidery, nor will I offer to give any advice to you. I am your wife, that you have gained by oath-breaking, so you will receive no joy from me." She then stood and tore the tapestry that she had been working on apart, and asked that her chamber's doors be opened so that her promise and lamentation could be heard throughout the hall. After a few days, Gudrun asked her maids why they were so upset. Svadjod answered, "The hall is full of grief. These days are cursed." Gudrun then said, "We have been this way for too long. We will go to our needlework together. Go and wake Brynhild. Let us put an end to this." But Svadjod refused. "I will not speak to her. She has not drunk anything in days. She carries the anger of a god." And so Gudrun called for Gunnar. "Go to Brynhild. Tell her to end her grief." But Gunnar initially refused, saying, "I am forbidden from seeing her." But eventually go he did. But he could not get her to wake or talk to him. So Gunnar sent Hogni, and she would not speak to Hogni either. So finally they sought Sigurd, but Sigurd just frowned. I would not talk to them either. The next day, Gudrun went to Sigurd. No one can wake Brynhild. I think she might die. She is not asleep, said Sigurd. She is planning her revenge. Please go to her, pleaded Gudrun. Try to end this grief. So Sigurd went to Brynhild, and they talked at some length about the betrayal, about the witchcraft of Grimhild, the deceit of Gunnar, and Brynhild held Sigurd accountable for a portion of that deceit. And Sigurd confessed his love for Brynhild and the pain that he felt while he was in his true mind that he was not with her. He offered her treasure, and even to forsake Gudrun for her, whatever she needed to regain her happiness. I shall not take 2 kings under one hall, she replied. I do not wish to live. Sigurd left Brynhild, and when Gunnar found him and asked after Brynhild, all Sigurd could say was that she was talking again. So Gunnar went to her and found her in her grief. I do not wish to live, she said. My oath has been broken by our marriage and by the deceit of you and Grimhild. I cannot have 2 husbands under one hall, and Gudrun knows the whole story and hates me for it. If these circumstances go on any longer, it will mean the death of you or I or Sigurd. There is no other course. Brynhild left her chambers and went to sit against the walls of the hall. Gunnar found her, and when he approached her, she turned to him and said, You will lose everything you have, me, your status, your wealth, and your life, and I will go home to remain there in my sorrow, unless you kill Sigurd and his son. Gunnar did not like the thought of killing Sigurd, but nor could he stand to lose Brynhild. He put the problem to his brother, Hogni, who counselled against slaying Sigurd. We have never had a more loyal or skilled ally, he said. We have an oath of brotherhood with him, and he has repaid that oath 1,000 times. I cannot counsel slaying him, but I can see where these notions arise for you. Brynhild is poisonous. She will lead us to fall, should you follow her advice. But Gunnar had made up his mind. I can get Guttorm to do the deed. He is young and naive. And was it not Sigurd who took my wife's maidenhead? Surely that is a crime that must be punished. Hogni let Gunnar know his disagreement with this line of thinking, but Gunnar made one final statement of commitment to his brother. Sigurd must die, or I will die. It is that simple. And so it was that Gunnar and Hogni called upon the sorcery of their mother, Grimhild, concocting a potent meal for Guttorm from snake, wolf flesh, and ale, and promising him much wealth and power to carry out the nefarious deed for them. Their promises, the meal, and Grimhild's enchantments filled him with fire for the deed, and in the morning he went to Sigurd's chambers. It took Guttorm 3 times to find the courage to actually attack Sigurd, despite everything that his brothers and mother had laid upon him. And he only found bravery on his 3rd attempt, as at the time he was sure that Sigurd was asleep. He drove his sword through Sigurd's body, so deep that it passed through the sleeping hero and struck his bed beneath. As Guttorm went to leave after performing his grisly deed, however, Sigurd awoke and found himself mortally wounded, with his brother-in-law at his door, back towards him as in leaving the room. He grasped Gram, and with a mighty heave threw the blade at Guttorm, who fell, cloving in 2 at his waist, his upper half falling back into the chamber. Gudrun, lying asleep next to Sigurd, awoke at this, and found herself in a pool of her husband's blood as he lay dying beside her. She screamed, and tears of remorse welled up in her eyes. Sigurd lifted himself up onto one elbow to face her. Do not weep. You still have your brothers, but I have a son who is not old or strong enough to defend himself. I kept every oath I made to Gunnar, and have never been less than a brother to him, yet it has come to this. As it has been foretold by Brynhild, and as she has urged it to be, so it has happened. If I had understood better how things would be, I would have not been caught sleeping. They would have found me ready to face them. and none of your brothers would have survived. But it is as fate has had it." And with this, Sigurd died. Brynhild heard Gudrun's cries of anguish and laughed. Gunnar said to her, "You laugh, but this is all your doing. You have brought about the death of my brother and my brother-in-law. I should take your brother Atli and kill him in front of you." But Brynhild was remorseless. "No one will argue that there has not been enough killing yet. But do not threaten Atli. He is not frightened of you. Go to war with him. He will turn out to be the mightier." Gudrun came to them, still soaked in Sigurd's blood. "You have killed my husband," she said to Gunnar, "and your blood brother, and your best warrior. You will lead your armies into battle, and you will find yourself the weaker because he is not there. Our king could have been stronger with his bloodline running through them, but you have ended this and doomed us all." Brynhild addressed Gunnar. "You are an oath breaker. You first made me break my oath through deceit. Now you have broken your blood oath to your brother-in-law that you have murdered. All is as I have foreseen. Mark that things will not go well for you, my husband, even though I now die." She asked for her wealth to be brought to her, and had it arranged around her bed. Then she lay back on her pillows and took her sword and ran it through herself. As her blood welled in the wound, she bade any who would come and take their pick of the treasures around her, and then she spoke to Gunnar. "I will give you my last foretelling. The counsel of the witch Brynhild will reconcile you with your sister. Gudrun will bear a daughter by Sigurd, and she will be named Svanhild. She will be the most beautiful woman that has ever been born. Gudrun will be forced to marry Atli. You will want my sister Oddrun, but my brother will forbid it. But you will meet with her anyway. Atli will have his revenge by putting you in a snake pit, and then Gudrun will kill him and his sons. She will then be carried to the hall of King Jonnakar, where she will give birth to their sons. Svanhild will marry King Jormunrek, but the tongue of Biki will lead her to death. And then your line will be dead, and Gudrun will know nothing but sorrow." Then she made one last request. "Build one pyre for Sigurd, for me, for all who have and will die this day, so that we will all burn together. Put my body next to his, with a sword drawn between us, as it was when he came to me through my fire in your guise. Place 2 of my men at his other side, and 2 at his head, and 2 at his feet, with 2 hawks. Then place the slain body of his son with us, and the body of Guttorm, your brother." Then her wound got the better of her, and she could speak no more. Gunnar arranged all as Brynhild had requested, and so the lives of Sigurd and Brynhild, these tragic lovers, ended. We will find out more about Gudrun in the next episode, and witness the final fate of the Volsungs. Remember to subscribe and switch notifications on so that you'll know when this final episode of the Saga of the Volsungs falls. And until then,